Rewind the dynamite from the post-wrestling site. AEW, lighting up the fuse. Sit back and enjoy the bubbly as we hear from Jon and Wai Ting. Where we're going, we don't need roads. And if the buck stops here, this thing might blow. Everything you hear are opinions of the show. And if you don't like it, go to the forums and let them know.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Rewind-A-Dynamite. It's John Pollock, and I'm joined by Wai Ting. How are you, Wai?
I'm doing all right, John. How are you?
I'm doing okay. I talked to you beforehand, and I think that certainly today it feels a little strange to just jump into wrestling off the bat. So I just wanted to get some of your thoughts of following all of the coverage today in DC, and I think everyone probably sharing very similar sentiments of being horrified while at the same time seeing that the ground had kind of been laid, that this, I can't say this is a shocking event, but it's still surreal to watch it actually unfold in front of your eyes as it did today.
Very much so. And I wish this feeling wasn't so
common.
Yeah, it's not the first time we've had to start one of these wrestling review podcasts talking about something that is so big in real life that it feels weird to just step right into wrestling. So I wish this feeling wasn't so so common. And what is, what can really be said? Like, we're watching this whole thing unfold like the rest of the world, and yeah, I feel like I've watched way more CNN this year than probably like any other year. It just it felt like the final scene of a movie, as like the villain tries his best to hold on to whatever I guess thing he's holding on to until the movie ends. But it was unreal to see some of that footage today. So it's the divide that these forces have created thus far.
I think that it's certainly like when we look at today, like as I said, I can't say that there is complete shock that it has gotten to this level where you would have extremists storming the Capitol. Like, just saying that out loud is insanity. But that's where we are at this point, and I think that it depends really on your life experience of what you watch today. I think you can watch it and just be horrified at this being an attack on democracy. I think that if you are a person of color watching this, and very valid criticism of how this was handled versus other peaceful protests and what occurred, you're going to have a very different view of what happened today, and you're watching it through that prism. Like, there's so many intersection points that today represents. That's kind of how I take away from this. And at the same time, not believing that any horrible action today is necessarily a rock bottom point. I don't know that simply a transfer of power. I think we can all believe a peaceful transfer of power is wishful thinking at this point, but a transfer of power regardless is necessarily going to quell any of this. If anything, it may heighten it. And what is the next step? There was one fatality today. God knows, there were two suspected homemade bombs found near the RNC and the DNC headquarters today. Like, this is just like next level. And it's almost like there is a subset of Americans that feel this is the appropriate response to an electoral outcome.
Yeah, and somehow they feel justified based on, the continued fanning of the flames from political leaders that currently exist that aren't really doing enough to stop it all. So,
who was locked off of Twitter for 12 hours? That was
in Facebook now today as well.
Oh, Facebook.
Yeah,
oh.
But I mean, I'm one fatality. It's crazy, honestly. Like, to know that one person died in that building, and things, they're counting those those votes right now as we speak. It's
They have resumed the confirmation process as we speak.
It's a wild day, and I don't even know if I've really fully processed a lot of what's been going on. To be quite honest with you, John, and I think a lot of people probably echo the sentiment, but like I was hardly in the mood to watch wrestling, tonight. It was just like so many things happening at once that I don't know.
Tonally, it didn't feel right. Like it was just like this was such an enormous story that I really didn't even feel like doing our show tonight. Like I don't know. There's been so many of these where it just seems very. I hate the fact that we are starting off so many shows like this where I don't see necessarily like an end in sight. Like, is this just going to be like? It's just such a dangerous level that it's reached where facts are out the window. Just any kind of like rules that are to govern everybody. Like there is a certain meeting point where things are accepted. Like that is just all out the window. And now we're going to the step of violence, of riots, of storming government facilities. Like this is just the next line that has been crossed. And you have seen just 4 years of destruction of institutions figuratively, and now we're getting the literal destruction of them on top of it, where there's been such a distrust placed of information, of so many outlets, of the media, that it's all just this perfect storm that has coalesced into today's actions. Like that's kind of how I see it.
Yeah, it's all those things. Where does it end up? Hopefully this is it. Hopefully it doesn't get worse than this, but
like there's supposed to be an inauguration in 10 days.
Yeah.
13 days.
Mm-hmm.
Like where are we? Like just the safety protocol to even pull that off seems insane to even attempt something like that, knowing this is the temperature of some Americans. And I say some because my belief is that this is still a very small amount of people that would go to these extremes. But it was like those scenes today were absolutely frightening. And we're saying it from the comfort of being a country away. But you still look on in shock and horror. And at what point does this ideology spread to others?
Yeah. It probably is a lot more widespread than we think, like going into election night. I don't know if we thought
this was the fear of what would happen at that point. It was delayed, but like it was like that was certainly a fear that there would be this rage coming out with the outcome.
Yeah. So hopefully, hopefully it ends here, but I don't know. I could see as many people seeing the events of today and like cheering people on and feeling inspired. It's like I don't exactly know where the cycle ends. I don't know exactly what I think it'll take to stop it all, and to get us back on the right track of just normalcy in the midst of like one of the most abnormal times to begin with. So it just
I'm wishing for all of my American friends that Joe Biden is the most boring president in your history. I hope that there are days that you have to actually pause to remind yourself, who's the president again? Oh yeah, it's Biden. Like that's how dull a 4-year cycle I want this to be. I want just your Washington Post to be filled of like policy every single day. I want the most dull. You know what I want? I want the Americans to have the John Tory to their Rob Ford.
He's a pretty boring guy.
This guy doesn't do anything outside of the lines, and it's all I want in my mayor. Give me the most boring politician. I don't want to read about my elected leader. I don't want him to be the subject of a monologue on Jimmy Kimmel. I just want this to go through, and it's like nothing.
Joe Biden seems like that type of personality, but I think what first and foremost what we can ask for is a leader of sound mind. which I don't think we have right now. Or sorry, our friends in the South don't have right now.
Well, I think that was, I think the legacy of this president, I think today captures everything of what his legacy will be and how it will be remembered. So we are going to make the natural pivot from that over to tonight's show, and then we may take some calls and go through some feedback. For those that, you can fast forward through this beginning stuff, but I think it's very important to talk about this stuff, and I just can't in good conscience just jump into a wrestling review when there are much bigger things happening on the world stage than New Year's Smash.
Yeah, I agree.
So let's chat about this show. The first of two.
Oh, if you're looking for news, by the way, we did a whole New Year Dash review as well as a discussion about Raw ratings on the post-news update earlier in the day. So just scroll down in your feeds for that.
Yes, on the free feed. You can also check it out on the Post Wrestling YouTube channel. While we're at it, I will mention that Thursday we'll be releasing the MMA prediction show with ESPN's Ariel Helwani joining me as we will go back and look at his predictions from last year and then make a whole new list. On Friday, we are live 10:15 Eastern with Rewind to SmackDown going into the weekend. And then Sunday, we've got two shows dropping with the long and winding Royal Road. WH Park is back, and they're going to be reviewing Mitsuharu Misawa and Jun Akiyama from February of 2000 and the return of Total Recall, the debut of Total Recall for 2021.
Yes, that's right. I believe these two episodes are the ones where they're both supposed to give birth, so there'll be plenty to talk about.
Oh, okay. They're actually the episodes are the actual deliveries.
I think so. Yes.
Oh, okay. So we'll get to find out how good Daniel Bryan's phone work was, his camera phone work, because
that's right.
That was the thing, that they weren't going to be allowed anyone in the delivery room, and the significant others would have to shoot the footage on the phone.
I'll let you know how it is.
Okay. I look forward to that review. And also, I want to make a mention that Andrew Thompson has a really great interview, a lengthy one with Daniel Makabe up on the site as well. You can check out that as well as on Andrew Thompson interviews on YouTube. So Dynamite, featuring our four-man broadcast team of Jim Ross, Excalibur, Tony Schiavone, and back for a second week, Chris Jericho. 8-man tag kicked things off with the Young Bucks, Christopher Daniels, and Frankie Kazarian against the acclaimed Jack Evans and Angelico. Max Caster came out. I thought it like a solid rap this time out, embracing that we might be the John Cena guys, but the Bucks are the Marty Jannettis, and insulted Kazarian's rap from a few weeks back, as well as Snoop Dogg's tracks.
I thought better lines from Caster this week. They were certainly maybe a lot more scathing, and I thought they got a pretty good reaction, I would say.
Yeah. I was hoping that he would somehow, with Snoop Dogg, so much material, I would think, for a rap. Like, he took the one line at him, but just something like, Frankie Kazarian, your rap, it goes down in the ranks right up there with that awful track for Sasha Banks. Come on, that's a 2-for-1. You get to knock Snoop Dogg, you take a shot at the competition, and you insult Kazarian.
You could have mentioned the Cody track from tonight. I think.
I guess we didn't know that was coming, though.
Well, sure, okay.
They had the advantage on Daniels. Kazarian gets to tag in. He was in with Evans. Kazarian's just been. He was great in here with Evans, I thought. Ross referred to Jack Evans as an athletic bastard, and that prompted Jericho to throw out his Stu Hart impression. Matt did a somersault dive onto the stage, then off the stage he went, climbs up, high cross to the floor. He was just on fire. Nick and Kazarian then hit Bowens with the BTE trigger. It's broken up. Jack Evans with a 630 onto Nick's knees. Super kicks all around. Caster stops the Meltzer driver by pulling Nick to the floor, and then Nick fakes out the Meltzer driver like he goes off the top, lands on the mat, and then instead springboards to the floor with a swanton. So Matt's just holding Jack Evans in the tombstone position for Daniels to hit the best Meltzer ever, and they pin Evans in 9 minutes and 58 seconds. Just, out of control, fun 8-man to start the show. Pretty spectacular.
Yeah, really fast-paced action. There was a lot happening really quickly. So high energy matches, pretty much like par for the course now for AEW Dynamites to start off with. And in this case, I feel like the point was really just to kind of reestablish SCU as players in this tag division.
Yeah, and I thought good outing for Jack Evans in particular. He got to shine quite a bit here. The focus was on Daniels during the finish, and then Kazarian. For those that were not following Dark, explain the whole concept that if they lose again, they are done as a team, but he won't let that happen on his watch. Daniels tells the Young Bucks, "We have your back, except for when we challenge you for the titles, because we want to beat the best team in the world." So that seems to be like the long-term match to build to, and Daniels and Kazarian, I guess, winning their matches up until that point, and maybe that's, I don't know, the February pay-per-view, maybe?
Sure, you would figure, yeah. Though, like, I guess the rule is because the rankings have reestablished themselves. They reset for 2021, so I guess they're technically, like, in the bottom. Because I was going to say, like, I feel like it's not that hard to get a title shot, is it? They could have just like said, "Hey, next week, how about you give us the challenge for the belt?" But that wouldn't be much of a story.
No, I think you want to have them go through some teams at first, and then you can build it up. But that looks to be the ultimate payoff: is the tag title match and making you believe that Daniels and Kazarian could win, and then you do whatever your angle is going to be with them. Jon Moxley arrives, his first appearance. He complains. He says complaining is a waste of time. Sometimes you're on the bad end of a bad deal and you have to take it on the chin, but you don't back down an inch. Don Callis, he's a used car salesman, and I have zero tolerance for shitty people. He said that Rey Fenix has scratched and clawed for this chance, so he's saying he will not interfere in the match tonight, but Omega will never be safe. He is going to get even, and you'll always be lurking over your shoulder. You crossed the wrong guy. The Boogeyman.
Really great promo from Mox, and building up to that rematch.
Way better Boogeyman segment than on Monday.
Yes.
Dasha interviewed Chuck and Orange Cassidy. They said that Trent is out for 4 to 5 months with his bicep injury. Miro and Kip Sabian come in laughing and say that, hey, I guess that means, Chuck, you're out for 4 to 5 months. Because this is like WWE, where a tag partner means the other's out for that time. He says Trent is the leader, so you must be out for that time. Miro offers Chuck the role of being his young boy. Chuck says, I've actually been to Japan. I know what the young boys do, and I decline your offer. And they're going to fight next week. And Miro says, well, if you lose, then you have to be my young boy until after the wedding. Chuck, who, let's remember that last week, this match was announced. So he already had this match, but agreed to this stipulation, which I don't know what wasn't exactly that he was under duress having to accept this. So Chuck has now agreed that if he loses this, he will be his young boy until after the wedding.
The duress was from Miro interrupting the segment, and Chuck just kind of played a lot off like he wanted Miro to leave, which is, I think, kind of, yeah, it's not very good writing and wasn't very good acting either, but it is a story to keep Chuck active in a storyline. You would expect Miro to win, and we'll see some sort of skits or vignettes or whatever of Chuck being his young boy. And we'll see how that goes, despite being in this company since the beginning. I think Chuck Taylor is still pretty untested as like a character in AEW. We haven't really heard many promos from him at all. He kind of plays this laid back guy, and aside from his matches, we've seen very little of him as a formed character. So this at least seems to be the start of something singular for him.
I bet that the influence of this, because I do believe, Chuck loses this, and then you can do all the skits. I'm sure some of the inspiration of this comes from that world-class angle that they did where David Von Erich got Jimmy Garvin had to be like his ranch hand and come do these like over-the-top segments on the ranch where he had to work for David. And I guess this is like the opposite side where it would be the heel. But yeah, I think this actually could be something good for Chuck to do, like some comedy bits with Miro. It could be good for both of them because I think both need kind of more of that kind of character definition that some of these vignettes could provide them.
Mm-hmm.
Jake Hager against Wardlow. This allowed them to mention Danny Hodge's passing when they noted Jake Hager's hometown, and the Inner Circle came out and they watched from the stage. Now, the first half of this match, I thought these two were like really off. Like, I thought it was clumsy. They just seemed to not be have their timing down together. It picked up though in the second half. Wardlow got his feet up on a Hager bomb attempt, and then Hager tried for an ankle lock, and Wardlow kicked away. He shoulder tackled Hager off the apron into the rail, and then landed a swanton for a 2 count. That looked very impressive for Wardlow. Hager repeatedly went for the head and arm choke. Wardlow escaped. It was reapplied on the turnbuckle, and he dumped Hager on the turnbuckle to break free, hitting the F10, and Wardlow pinned Jake Hager that they characterized as a minor upset.
I thought it was like a good modern athletic heavyweight fight. You know, it's considering his lack of exposure in AEW, I thought Wardlow has done really well. I thought his presence overall matched Hager's here. Cut a good promo to start, and the booking really kind of put the spotlight on him as, you know, a future star in this company. So I thought it was like a good way to kind of add a bit of like heavyweight variety to the show on an otherwise like cruiserweight level roster.
Yeah, I think certainly by the end, Wardlow looked very good here in the closing stretch, able to showcase his athleticism. I think that, again, he has enormous potential. The Inner Circle got into the ring, and they all, Hager and Wardlow, gave each other a fist bump. So we are to believe they're back on the same page. Private Party was in the back. They had their gin, but Snoop brought the juice. So Matt Hardy walks in, and he has contracts for them. And the contracts are laid out that Matt will get 30% of their pay. They sign these contracts, and Snoop just stands here the whole time. Matt also adds that they'll be allowed to use third-party platforms. And I thought, like, Snoop was going to take a look at the contracts or something and lend his expertise when it comes to management deals. But he just stood there. He had nothing to add here beyond the juice.
Snoop like couldn't look more bored standing here during like Matt Hardy's contract discussion. You know, I don't know why you would waste Snoop Dogg's time like this. You have one of the most famous celebrities in the world appearing on your show, and I felt like this was a total waste of him having to sit through this stupid contract segment with Matt Hardy and Private Party. And even though this wasn't Snoop's only appearance, I felt like it was a totally wasted opportunity that you could have had for another, you know, somebody else on the roster or even Private Party in something more specifically targeted between them and Snoop Dogg. Because after this, they gained nothing from Snoop's appearance here. He gave them gin and juice. Yes, funny. Okay. But like, why not write the rest of the skit around him rather than having him stand awkwardly around as Matt Hardy does this like weird contract thing that hasn't really gotten over at all, his new character. So I felt bad for Snoop here, and I thought it was a waste.
At the very least, if that's like your one like line for Snoop, do the segment, sign the contracts, and then to celebrate, they bring out the gin, and then the big punchline is who's got the juice, and the final shot is Snoop coming in with the juice, and boom, get out of there.
Yeah, it would have, you know, prevented the awkward standing around.
Yeah, just have the nice little cameo at the end of the scene instead of your joke is at the beginning of the scene, and then he just stands there with his hands in his pockets for 3 minutes. Mm-hmm. So I think you could have done the exact same thing, just do the order different. Darby Allin is out with Brian Cage for the weigh-in. He's also got the new TNT title that they have redesigned. Taz is upset because Taz is always upset. This time because Brian Cage has to weigh in first. So he gets on the scale. He is 272 pounds. Darby is 170 pounds. And Taz complains that he weighs that much because he's wearing all of his stuff. Darby gets the mic. He says, this feud has not just been going on for 8 months. It's been going on for 27 years because I've been dealing with this shit my whole life. Taz is upset. He tells Shivani, get your wide ass out of here. And they're about to attack Darby when the lights go out. Sting appears, and Jericho's screaming that it's snowing. Taz, his fourth angry moment in this 2-minute segment is that he's sick of this snow. He's sick of Darby Allin, and they're going to crown a new champion next week. You rotten son of a bitch.
They've replaced the belt, so it's same design, but it's got a black strap now because, of course, -1 has the red one. I think this lights out gimmick thing is getting a bit tiring at this point, especially just with Sting. I think you probably needed something different this time, instead of just Sting lights out appearing and then shooing the villains away. I think it needed at least some sort of physical spot, something spectacular. It's definitely lost its luster by this point.
I don't know if it's a great idea having him be this weekly character.
Yeah,
doesn't need. They don't have ideas for him weekly. Mm-hmm. I understand they're trying to create this alliance with Darby. It just seems that
we get it. We get that there's an alliance now. We see them with each other every week. You know, we just need a bit more variety. Maybe they can at least have Sting maybe be able to cut a promo, just something a little bit different this week.
MJF is in the back. He has commandeered a cameraman, and he goes into the room where Jake Hager is furious over his loss, and he gives him a pep talk. He calls him a winner. You're still unbeaten in the octagon. And I was waiting for Hager to say, I don't fight in the octagon. I fight in the Bellator ring. But you should be proud of yourself. And Hager says, you know what? You're cool. Thanks for checking on me. And he thanks MJF. And I think this is the story. It's like MJF is worming his way into gaining all of the trust of the Inner Circle members before he tries his takeover.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, and each time he does it, he has to bring a camera with him,
which the other person never questions.
No, it's just like, he's used to WWE backstage segments.
But what about Santana and Ortiz?
They're used to Impact backstage segments.
Okay. Jim Ross then tees up on the matchup board Cody and Matt Sydal, ending it by saying, "You damn right it's unpredictable. Ain't nothing but a G-thang." Then they showed the highlights of -1's promo on Marco's stunt from Dark, which was a fun little segment that they did and ended up including it.
Those segments were great. He also cut another promo with the entire Dark Order about who was it that he was cutting a promo on? Luther, I believe. Yeah, like some really great segments. The kid was great, and all his friends will be talking about this tomorrow.
Alex Marvez was with Jurassic Express, and they're confronted by FTR, who run down Marco stunt being worthless, who adds nothing. He's their mascot, and says, maybe -1 is right. You are a loser. So Marco offers to take Luchasaurus' spot next week and team with Jungle Boy against FTR instead. And FTR laughs off this news, and Tully Blanchard pats Marco on the head as he leaves.
Brief little backstage segment, but I thought it effectively set up a little storyline for Marco going into next week's match.
I think this is actually going to be a hell of a match next week.
Yeah.
Matt Sydal, Cody Rhodes, Jericho plugs Snoop has jumped to AEW, and he comes out to a remix of Cody's theme. What did you think of the remix, Way?
I think Downstate and Snoop Dogg just they're just not things that mix, you know? I really don't understand the point of this other than to brag that you have a custom Snoop Dogg theme song. In terms of character, it doesn't fit Cody, and I think it sounds terrible.
You're not a fan of Dogg State.
Dogg State. Wow.
I did think it was funny that Snoop literally played Arn Anderson using the scouting report.
Yes. No explanation whatsoever. No backstage skit to set it up. He just walked out here.
No, he was just here, and they made it very clear. They may as well have just said, he's here to promote this show. That's it. We're inserting him. He's playing Arn Anderson.
I would have loved to have seen
Arn and Snoop.
Arn and Snoop, maybe Arn is with Private Party. They're having a bit too much gin and juice, and then all of a sudden Snoop has to be the one to come out instead. Some sort of
you're
context.
Right. I think you're right. I think there were a lot of fun segments you could have done with Snoop, who I would have seen no hesitation that he would have had to be all in on this stuff. So
if he was willing to just stand there during Matt Hardy's contract segment
He did
without doing
physicality
anything?
on the show. I think he would have been open for any ideas. I think it was a bit of a lost opportunity to do some fun segments with him throughout the show.
We also didn't get him on commentary, but I mean, I do understand it. It seemed like they preferred his visual presence, and of course, with the dive that he ended up doing,
They could have got Morrow to come in and call a match with him.
That'd be great.
Cody is okay. It starts off. Seidel does this crazy flip off the top to go into an arm drag, and they ended up completing it. Then there was a Meteora on the stage, but Seidel injures his knee. On the floor, Cody goes to strike Seidel, who ducks, and he nails Serpentico in the front row. Cody then applies the Scorpion Deathlock, and this would be a theme in the match where he would use Sting's moves. Cody then hit the inverted superplex, missed a moonsault, and then Seidel goes for a shooting star press, landing on the knees. Crossroads is teased, but instead he hits the Scorpion Death Drop. And Seidel fires back. There's a jumping knee strike, but then Cody takes control, hits 2 Crossroads, and wins the match. It was like a pretty good back and forth match here, and they built this up fairly well on the Road to special this week too.
Yeah, decent match. I didn't even notice the whole Sting association. What do you think that's leading towards? Because Darby's with them right now.
Yeah, I don't know. It was kind of confusing because it was obvious the Scorpion Deathlock they was going for, but they were kind of like, first it was like Jim Ross was asking, "Are you sure it's not a clover leaf?" And then he was calling it the sharpshooter. Jericho asked that, and then the sharpshooter was mentioned, but I thought it was fairly clear what he was going for here. And then he did the Scorpion Death Drop as well. So obviously that was done by design. And, that's kind of our, Cody, Darby, and Sting. That's the picture. And I would think that if you can do one of these, it all comes down to how can you get around doing a Sting match? Does it have to be, can it only be a cinematic version? And then is Cody aligned with him, against him? It's just,
See, my whole thing is that I just hope that there's actual follow-up to something like that. You can throw these moves out and, have it be a nice subtle tease, but we've seen so many nice subtle teases from Cody lately that it's just that don't have their follow-ups. What's
the 4 fingers or?
Yeah, what's the latest with that? What's the latest with Shaq? These are all just kind of loose ends that are thrown out there that we just get no kind of reminders of after 1 week or 2 weeks.
Maybe his middle name is Never Ending.
Yeah.
It's a long path on these roads. So Serpentico and Luther jump the rail and they attack Cody. So Seidel helps Cody, and Serpentico is laid out. So Snoop gets involved. He climbs to the top and he hits the ugliest splash in the history of professional wrestling, as Cody counts 3, as Serpentico puts over Snoop. And Tony Schiavone just says, Snoop Dogg is so freaking cool. Jericho's he's blowing a gasket. I hate him. And then Snoop comes over to hug Jericho, who's just all smiles. And he shakes the hands of the other announcers as he leaves. Ugly as sin, this splash. But I guess the hope is that this clip will go over virally in a big way.
A really, really terrible splash, but pretty damn cool to have Snoop Dogg doing a wrestling move on your TV show.
Hikaru Shida and Abadon for the Women's Championship. They fought on the stage, and Shida attacks her with the weapon of choice for every single company in the world, the kendo stick. Abadon doesn't sell it. She stops a running knee and bites Shida's thigh, then pulls her under the ring, dragging her to hell, as Jericho observed. And Abadon emerged with blood coming down her face, and Shida comes out with a neck wound. So she's, I guess, half dead. They fight through the break. Shida then made her comeback with the pound of flesh she had lost from her neck. She pounds Abadon's head into the barricade, superplexes her, and then Abadon does the Bray Wyatt spider walk and hits a lariat, lifts her for the gory special. It's countered, and Shida hits the Tomashi to retain the title.
I really like the feud, and I really like the match. I think Abadon is terrifying and just so amazing at her gimmick. I really liked the start of this match where her gimmick was hunting for body parts to bite throughout the match. I felt they went a little overboard with the under the ring thing. It became a little too campy for me, coming out with all the fake blood.
They kind of lost me there.
Yeah, but I think overall they managed to create this feeling of Shida fighting off this like horror movie monster really well throughout. Like this to me felt like she was in a life or death fight rather than just a wrestling match. So much so that like I felt like they could have accomplished a whole lot more with this pairing than just this one TV match. I'm a little disappointed we didn't get to see more story elements between the two. We didn't even really get the semblance of a real feud. It was just some, one-off attacks here and there. So I was almost disappointed to see such a clean win that it just made it feel like this feud was pretty much over.
It did feel pretty final at the end of it. It's like Hikaru Shida overcame this monster, retained the title, and I guess it's on to the next challenger, whether that's going to be something kind of coming out of next week when Serena Deeb takes on Ty Conti, or you could throw in like an Anna Jay. I mean, there's options. There's certainly options. I guess it's really just coming down to like this is the division that I just think it's really struggled to have that big defining rivalry for that women's championship that will elevate that title and by extension Shida as well. Like she has very good matches. I just don't think that she has had that opponent yet that's really kind of brought everybody up with it.
I think it really comes down to character and story, and this is part of the reason why I'm so disappointed we didn't get a little bit more out of the Abadon feud, because I think Abadon as a villain for the type of character that Hikaru Shida is supposed to be, I think was a perfect fit. Would have brought out a whole lot more, I think, heroic characters and personality out of Shida. So they have a number of like promising opponents. Brewing, I think, but we'll see if they can get to the full level to be able to kind of really have this division break through.
Next week on the show, a laundry list of segments and matches announced. Darby Allin versus Brian Cage for the TNT title. Miro versus Chuck Taylor with the stipulation. Serena Deeb versus Ty Conti for the NWA women's title. Kenny Omega and The Elite in action. Jurassic Express versus FTR. Eddie Kingston versus Pac. The Inner Circle's New Year's resolutions. And The Waiting Room makes its Dynamite debut with guest Cody Rhodes.
Yeah, we'll see.
Ty Conti cut a quick promo with Anna Jay, John Silver, and Alex Reynolds on Serena Deeb, essentially saying she won't be alone next week. Then Pac cut a promo with the Death Triangle that tonight Phoenix will achieve greatness, but he'll do it on his own, and he will be the next AEW champion. So the last half hour of the show was dedicated to Kenny Omega and Rey Fenix for the AEW title. It started, Jericho was defending Winnipeg as the best city in Canada, which got the announcers to come up with every Canadian city they can remember, and they hit a brick wall after Brantford. Phoenix was able to maintain his balance on top for a double springboard, and then a Tope Con Hero threw the ropes into the guardrail. There were so many spectacular moments to this match. There, maybe like the most breathtaking was a moonsault off the top by Phoenix, clearing Omega, landing behind him on his feet into a German suplex.
Spiking Kenny on his head. It was incredible. He
came down like on the head. Yes.
It was especially great because on one of the replays you could see Jake Roberts' reaction to the spot.
Yeah.
And if you could just imagine what's going through that man's head, seeing the evolution of pro wrestling from whenever he started to it looking like this, it must be incredible.
He hit a double foot stomp to the back of Omega's head, and then Kenny comes back, V-trigger, but Phoenix does a kip up immediately with a spin kick to the head, and then a springboard tornillo is hit with a flying knee in midair. Omega then killed Phoenix with another V-trigger, only got a 2 count. The one-winged angel was countered into a reverse Rana. This is when Don Callis distracts, and Omega gets the advantage. Phoenix then leaps off the ropes into a cutter in the ring off the stage, and then the Fire Thunder Driver generates a 2 count. Fenix put Snoop Dogg to shame with his Eddie Guerrero tribute frog splash, but lands on the knees of Kenny Omega. Fenix is then caught in midair. He's held up with the double underhooks into a tiger driver. It was perfect. And he kicks out of that before falling to the one-winged angel. Wei, I think this might have been the best match in Dynamite history. This was among them at the very least.
Yeah, very well could be. I'm sure they're, by this point, even a year plus in, like they've probably got quite the DVD of like best of Dynamite matches in their collection. So, but this was definitely among them. An incredible TV match. It almost felt like it was too good for TV.
I thought like this was by TV standards, like, man, you'd have to really search for a TV match at this level. Like this to me was a match of the year contender right off the bat.
Incredible action start to finish, like moves that don't even seem possible in video games if you want to try to replicate them. So, I don't, Phoenix, I think we all recognize was this incredible talent that has largely been untapped in AEW. In ring, like he's had not even like so many memorable performances as a single star. So I really hope coming out of this, he gets more of a push and a story. It's been the main thing that I think has been plaguing him and Penta. We know they're incredible in ring, but it's just the lack of story. And I mean, a lot of it's not really their fault. Like Death Triangle was probably meant to get going a lot earlier than now, but hopefully Phoenix gets something substantial coming out of this.
So then after the match, Callis cut a promo with Kenny in the ring. They show footage of Pac and Pentagon being attacked by Eddie Kingston, the Butcher, and the Blade. And Phoenix is in tears watching this happen. Callis says that you're getting a one-winged angel into the scrap heap of history. And out to make the save is Jon Moxley wielding a barbed wire bat as he attacks Kenny. But then the Good Brothers, Carl Anderson and Doc Gallows, jump Moxley. They're wearing the Impact tag titles. They lay him out with a magic killer. Omega's arm is bleeding from the barbed wire bat, and he beats the hell out of Moxley with this bat repeatedly. Brian Pillman Jr. and Griff Garrison run in. They're beaten down. Then others from around the ring try and save. They're all beaten down. And Moxley has one last gasp to try and fight back, and then he's beaten down before the Young Bucks come out, and they're pleading with them to stop, and they don't know what to do. And Matt Jackson and Anderson see Pillman and Garrison grab Omega, and each nails one of them as they inadvertently work together, saving Kenny. And with that, Omega, Anderson, and Gallows throw up the Too Sweet sign, which they can't call it, so they're doing their tribute to Ace of Base with Jericho yelling, "The sign!" They're doing the sign. And Matt and Nick join in on the Too Sweet, and that is our closing image of AEW Dynamite.
Yes. Finally, we get some sort of interaction from Impact the other way around on Dynamite. And I think it's the pairing that everybody wanted to see most make their way from AEW. The Good Brothers coming in to reunite, not just with Kenny Omega in AEW, but with the Young Bucks. So I thought it was a really excellent closing angle to end the show, and an amazing match that preceded it as well. It definitely makes you wonder all the possible outcomes that can come from this. You know, the Good Brothers and Kenny versus the Death Triangle, or like Good Brothers and Kenny, and like the Elite, or the Elite plus the Good Brothers. I'm sure they're gonna have to call this something, but the five of them taking on the Inner Circle, for instance, like that's really intriguing to me. So I'm excited by what they're doing here.
It was like a nice surprise to do this at the end. It pushes Omega, Gallows, and Anderson with this upcoming Hard to Kill pay-per-view as well. And I guess it will be very interesting to see if next week, which is a live show, if they do something where Swan and the Machine Guns show up.
Possibly, yeah. You
like
wonder.
If you're Impact, that would be the one you really want to push that pay-per-view main event for that Saturday.
So here's the thing: is like I've always been trying to wonder myself, is like, what exactly are their agreements, and what is AEW getting out of this? Because I can tell you, it doesn't make sense that they would be doing all this just so that they can, run their little kind of Tony Schiavone, Tony Khan ads on Access to try to get a few people to watch AEW Dynamite that are probably watching AEW Dynamite anyway. It makes sense to me that maybe in exchange for Kenny Omega to bring in the Good Brothers into AEW, that could be, somewhat of a fair trade. Now, does the deal extend so far that they're also willing to promote Impact's pay-per-views as well? There's nothing that indicates that they wouldn't. It seems like the relationship.
Well, next week's going to be the case. Next week's going to be the test. If they go 2 hours on Dynamite next week and never mention Hard to Kill, I think that would be pretty telling. And conversely, if they push it, then I would say like that would be notable as well. Like either way, because that next week's the go home week for that Hard to Kill pay-per-view, and like we've seen AEW, like they did not make a huge thing about Kenny going to do Triple Mania with Laredo Kid. Mm-hmm. So I guess
this is obviously a much closer working relationship that the two have.
Yeah, so that's why I'm curious next week if they really do push that or not.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. The other question is, is if it's Swan and the Machine Guns, I think an AEW audience would immediately know who they were, and they would react to them. Would a TNT audience know? I mean, that hasn't really stopped AEW at all. Like they've brought in Warhorse for crying out loud. So I would love to see Swan and the Machine Guns come in.
So that was Dynamite. I thought absolutely go out of your way to see this main event. I really believe it was one of the best Dynamite matches. Like this would be to me in the list of like top AEW matches. Like I was that high on this one.
We're 1 week in to 2021 and we already have several match of the year candidates.
I've got 6 from just the last 3 days.
That's
with this
insane.
being one of them. Yeah.
The main event absolutely did not disappoint. I will say I think Snoop Dogg's interaction outside of the ugly looking splash, which I thought was hilarious, was a little disappointing. I was hoping for more, like comedy, more fun from Snoop. But that splash was pretty fun. I liked Abadon Shida, even though like it was not very, very much a traditional AEW wrestling match. But I thought it was exciting. And the rest was, like decent, average AEW.
8-man was very good off the top.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was it. To me, it was really held up by like the main event, the opening 8-man. The rest, it was like it was fine. Like there was nothing. I wasn't all that into the women's title match, but I just haven't really been into this feud the whole way along. So, yeah, but that does somewhat, to your point, feel like the end of the program, and I think that there could have been more explored. I am definitely open to that idea had they gone there. I think they were sort of, this just kind of felt like a transitional program for Shida to keep busy, and got extended a week because of the circumstances last week.
Let's go to some feedback and even some calls if anybody in the chat room right now is interested. Of course, we are doing these live for Double Plus patrons every Monday, every Wednesday. Fridays, we will be back for all patrons for Rewind a SmackDown.
While we're at it, I won't go through like New Year's Evil results or anything like that, but it was announced on NXT Wednesday night that the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic this year, it's going to be a women's version of the Tag Team Classic. And the next TakeOver pay-per-view will be Sunday, February 14th on Valentine's Day.
Okay. Yeah, so let's go to the forum right now. What did you guys think of Dynamite? Out of 10, you guys gave the show a 7.6, which I have to say is a bit lower than usual, but not that much lower. Let's go to our first phone call, and I believe we have Mr. Fact Checker himself. Chris, please unmute yourself. You are on the air. What's up?
Gentlemen, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you, Chris. It's nice to talk to you. It's been a while.
Yes, I apologize. I was on excursion there.
Welcome back.
I'm a youngster. John, congratulations on the addition to the family.
Thank you very much.
Wai, how's it going?
It's going well. going on? What did you think of the shows tonight?
Well, I came to it pretty cold, and today it's such a fucked up day. It was an escape kind of for me to catch the whole broadcast. And so not knowing that Snoop was going to be on there, my expectations were completely different. And I really got a kick out of the whole thing. Just to see him come out in this getup and do his little delicate jog in the ring, and was thinking, oh shit, he's going to do something physical tonight on this ridiculous show. The main event blew me away. So kind of a little bit of everything that I was hoping to catch on the episode. A question I want to put to you guys. So Snoop's established this new finish on television. So what ought it be called? I submit the drop it like it's hot drop.
Okay.
And
yeah. That's a good
thanks
one.
so much. It's so nice to be actively engaged with the community again.
It's wonderful to have you part of said community. So thank you very much. I would say my recommendation would be let's not ever try this again. Is that a mouthful to call out loud?
Yeah, and I doubt that he will. I mean, I wonder what the insurance is like for a guy like that. Okay, let's go to Hansi up next. Hansi, what's going on?
Hey, what's going on, guys? What's it called? I gotta say, I enjoy when you guys go into the current events of what's going on when it calls for it. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I just think that, like, you know, because it was hard for me to watch wrestling also, but like it's become so ingrained in me, and sometimes like it's even harder now because like with social media and you're knowing about like a lot of like your favorite wrestlers, like, you know, political ideals and all that, right? It's kind of like it's kind of hard. Like I still love Jericho, like Jericho's contribution to wrestling, but like knowing what happened today and then like listening to him on commentary and then knowing like the people he platforms on his thing, whatever, it kind of just like, you know, it's kind of like, I don't know. I wish I could just separate people from like, you know, like the thing is if we judged everyone on every like all the fucking things that they liked, whatever, right? Then we couldn't really enjoy anyone, right? So it's kind of hard, but that being said, I did enjoy. I think this is one of the best episodes they've done. I like the ending angle. I really do think that like I personally think something historic is happening with this Omega and Bullet Club thing. I think like there is some good planning down the line with this. Like I don't know if Tony Khan's gonna like buy Impact or whatever. But yeah, I just really enjoyed the Phoenix. I agree with Pollock.
Why would he need to buy Impact? Like you could just get the talent.
Well, no. I mean, not like buy Impact and like merge them or anything like that. Meaning that like maybe like, you know, Anthem might go, oh look, you know, he's doing well with this. That what's it called? We could sell it to him or at least let him run it where it's run as a separate property, like an NXT kind of thing for AEW, like where at least some of the younger guys can get their reps in and maybe be featured more. You know what I mean? Like in that regard. And as far as Snoop Dogg, yeah, I never want to see this Frog Splash, but this is like the contrast with WWE and AEW with the rappers is that if AEW wanted to get some mainstream attention, they could have had Snoop Dogg, like they could have had somebody mention Eminem and Snoop Dogg, because that seems to be like the new beef that's circulating and getting buzz, whatever. Just look at what happened with Lacey Evans and Cardi B. She mentioned Nicki Minaj and Onslaught. It made headlines and all these hip hop news sites and all that. I just thought that, you know, AEW could have used Snoop Dogg better. And again, you know, guys, thank you for doing good work when you guys are, you know, breaking down the current events. I really appreciate it. You know what I mean? And it's nice to see like-minded people who think that this is utterly insane that's going on. But anyways, thank you guys.
Thanks very much for the call, Hansi. We appreciate it.
Okay. Any thoughts, John? Any of that?
I mean, on his last point, I actually think WWE should really jump on this Cardi B thing and try and do something.
She's clearly like on board. Like she talks about wanting to like make an appearance and, you know, cashing that check from Vince. So
why not?
Yeah,
like it was a throwaway line, but look what was handed to you on Monday. It's like, do something with it. Just do a cameo appearance with her. Like, she seems down to do it. Like, capitalize off of it. Like, imagine if don't do it next week, but you do it at a future date where
it's a mania level celebrity.
Like, imagine if there was an appearance where Angel Garza is sent into the locker room again.
Oh God, no! Please, no! I'd keep her away from Angel Garza, please.
Well, that would be what they would come up with. It would be an Angel Garza bit.
Okay. Let's get into some of the feedback on the board.
Okay. Let's start off with Noah from Vaughn. 6 days into 2021, and we already have a serious match of the year contender. We should pluralize that. There are contenders, and plenty of them 6 days in. An absolute barn burner between Fenix and Omega, and an incredible post-match with the reformation of the Bullet Club. Great way to start 2021 for AEW, leaving tons of intrigue for what's next. 9 out of 10 show. I'd love to see this iteration of the Bullet Club go against a Hangman Page-led Dark Order in the coming months.
We got Adam, who says the Miro match next week has the same stipulation as the pilot Jerry Seinfeld and George Costanza wrote for NBC. You should be his butler. The rating tonight will be dwarfed by what is happening in DC. Do you agree with that, John?
Oh, both shows tonight are going to get destroyed by all the news coverage is going to be insane tonight. So I think both shows are going to get hit. And typically we see AEW seems to take it worse than NXT, but 100%. Like, the news is going to be gigantic tonight.
You're next.
Next is Andrew from Cape Breton. Tonight was a decent distraction from today's outrage fatigue-filled day. I'll try to be positive as the show was good as usual. I like the slowly building story with the third iteration of the Bullet Club outside of New Japan and ROH, with the second being the OC. They should probably figure out a new name, as they might be beating a dead horse with the grouping. I like Hikaru Shida, but they really should look into finding someone new to put the title on. With the Impact crossover, putting it on someone like Jordan Grace or Deonna Purrazzo wouldn't be a bad idea. Anyway, a decent show, 7 out of 10. I don't know what he means by outrage fatigue today. I don't know if that's necessarily how he means it to come across. I think there was absolutely justifiable outrage all day long, but that may be lost in translation.
Maybe he's outraged.
I think people should be.
And he's tired from being outraged.
Well, that's maybe what he means.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Well, we go to Andy from London, who says, I thought that tonight was an okay episode of Dynamite, but it was capped off with a sensational main event. It had me gasping in amazement at least half a dozen times with just some amazing spots. I have to say, though, the post-match angle with the Bucks is going to take a bit of an explanation for me. I appreciate the history in Japan, but I'm concerned we're back to this weird face-heel hybrid that didn't work in the build to the FTR match. As for the rest of the show, I loved Wardlow versus Hager, and it was cool to see Wardlow go over, but I thought everything else was below par by Dynamite standards, and the Shida Abadon stuff really isn't for me. For a show with such a good main event, it would be rude to score any lower, 7.5 out of 10. Yeah, I definitely agree with you that I think some explanation is in store for where the Bucks' heads are, and I think they're telling you that there is some sort of internal conflict that they have. They are supposed to be baby faces amongst the clear heel team, and yet they just couldn't resist, pairing back with their old buddies from Japan. I think they need to at least be able to cut that promo. But beyond that, I think even a brief explanation, I mean, everybody watching AEW knows what the Bullet Club is, but if you have any hope of trying to get more people, casual viewers, to watch your show, a lot of this stuff needs to be explained, to audiences who don't know who Gallows and Anderson might be.
Yeah, you're right. That's a point that they should not take for granted, that everyone is up on this history. Because, I mean, you're going back. That's 5 years ago when Anderson and Gallows left New Japan. So, people probably are aware that there was a past affiliation, but you have to contextualize that and hear it from in their words as well to explain that relationship. And that is, they should be doing that. Aaron from Brampton, I feel like I'll catch some hate for this, but I'm not sold on Omega as the champion right now. I know he's a great wrestler, but his character feels incomplete. To me, he really comes across as a generic heel, and his dynamic with Don Callis doesn't feel well established. Is he Omega's boss or his hype man? I asked because he was giving Omega orders during the post-match promo. The only thing keeping Omega interesting for me is what looks to be a Bullet Club reunion. Besides that, I really enjoyed Hager versus Wardlow and Shida versus Abadon. Those were two matches that have been promoted for a while, so I was excited to see how they turned out.
Well, I mean, from what we know about the relationship, Callis has sort of been like an uncle to Kenny, and also at times just a father figure and a coach to Kenny.
Mhm.
So essentially, he is a manager. He is there to guide Kenny, to walk Kenny out, and to maybe handle his business dealings, and also maybe to interfere in
And
his
he's the
matches.
mastermind behind all of this that Kenny completely trusts as well.
Like he's his Paul Heyman to his Brock Lesnar. I'm not as picky about that element.
Yeah. I think this thing's going really great for him right now. I think that this has really put Kenny Omega into that highlight role, and I think it's also a tough role too to maintain that heel aura while you're still going out and having the fantastic matches that he's doing as well. And I think he's balancing that very effectively.
Mm-hmm.
And probably some of that helps with, again, the lack of crowds, is that you don't have, like, if this were a 4,000 people, they would have been losing their minds during this match. And a lot of that was spectacular stuff that Kenny was doing equal to Phoenix.
And during the Bullet Club reunion, are you kidding me?
Oh, they would have, you're right. That would have been a babyface spot. And was somewhat designed to be at the end too, in terms of like, you were cheering for the moment, even with the participants involved, like the Bucks kind of. But you're right. That would have been going off the air with everyone losing their mind.
We got a Kate who says, it feels weird I have to say it this way, but Omega Phoenix was one of the best I've seen this week. We've been waiting for weeks to get the other side payoff to the AEW Impact story, and the Bullet Club reunion was worth it. I could see this being the starting point for a big babyface push for Hangman Page, who will probably refuse to join his old friends. Does that mean the Dark Order are going to be the force for good? Yeah, very interesting. At this point, they're certainly positioned to be.
And they did do that scene on Being the Elite this week with Hangman coming in and just sitting down for a meeting with the Dark Order. Like, that is, it's going to be very, I wouldn't say difficult, but like it's going to have to be delicate where the Dark Order moves next. Like, everybody wants to see this group flourish and continue. And I think that like putting Hangman in there, that would be someone like they would accept in that role, and it would make sense.
Mm-hmm. She says, as a show this entertaining was really needed today, and I'm happy I was able to escape from the horrors of the world to the South and enjoy people biting each other, hitting each other with barbed wire baseball bats, and trying to break each other's necks.
That's what wrestling is here for. Next one here. Kenny Omega's entrance is very lame. Also, so is the shaking of his hands anytime he does a move. Overall, a very lame champion. Nice of AEW to have Jericho on commentary after he hosted a conspiracy theory nut on his podcast. Well,
I've not heard it. Don't think I will hear it.
Neither will I.
We got a Muggin who says Kenny Omega might have paid close attention to Wrestle Kingdom as he and Phoenix put on a barn burner main event. The Impact AEW joint venture took a massive turn with Gallows and Anderson invading Daly's place. The Young Bucks signing with Omega and Good Brothers feels like a Bullet Club rebirth. AEW held up their end of this cross promotion, and it has a lot of potential for Dynamite in the new year.
Yeah, this certainly seems like a long-term thing, like tonight's angle, what it kicks off. And Tom from Melbourne closes it off with fantastic main event that was every bit as good as anything on Wrestle Kingdom. The structure of the match was near perfect and managed to build a nice story within the constraints of TV time. I think it's worth mentioning Abadon's performance tonight as well, and that AEW continued to show that they can still build characters and contenders while giving us a clean winner. So there, thumbs up on the Abadon performance.
I mean, I just hope that there's follow-up for a character like that. So often in these sort of like one-off title matches, it's like they have their match and then we don't hear from them for months. And to me, that's always been a shame. AEW has done a great job of building certain characters, but others that I see so much potential in, it just kind of get lost by the wayside. And I'm kind of afraid that, even after tonight, Phoenix might be one of those. Abadon might be one of those.
Yeah, it's a tough character to like book in that sense. Like it's, the contrast obviously is like the Fiend, where I mean WWE they've just gone all in on that character, and some love it, some hate it. With Abadon, like it's a similar style of presentation, and after tonight, yeah, like if she just goes back to dark, that could be the case. Like, it's just kind of this rotation of new challengers, and once you're out of the queue, you sort of disappear from Dynamite.
Mm-hmm.
So that will wrap up the feedback portion. So thanks to everybody for either calling in or leaving your feedback on the forum, which you can always do. And a reminder that we are now live after each episode of Rewind-A-Raw and Rewind-A-Dynamite for our double-double Ice Cap and Espresso patrons. And then Rewind-A-SmackDown, we are live for all of our members of the Post Wrestling Cafe. So that is when we will be back on Friday night after SmackDown Way with 2 big title matches.
Yeah, which are?
Big E and Apollo Crews, and the one that I know you are excited about, the Street Profits and your Dirty Dogs.
Of course, yes. I mean, we've had such a great week of wrestling already. What a way to cap it off with this edition of Dynamite.
I haven't seen NXT yet, but I'm
SmackDown.
I'm really looking forward to this NXT episode when we are finished here.
Me too. I'll be honest with you. It's like, I'm probably going to have to take a bit of a break before I watch that. Number one, it's like not really in the mood to watch that much wrestling. But number two, I've seen so much wrestling already this week.
Yeah, it's kind of overload at this point on a Wednesday night after 11 p.m. Mm-hmm. But there's always more wrestling. That is the rule in pro wrestling. There's always more of it. But thank you, folks, for tuning in and checking out all of our coverage of Wrestle Kingdom, New Year's Dash. We have a report up on the site from Mark Buckledy as well, if you want to check that out. Always great analysis from Mark. And that is it.
This weekend, the Long and Winding Royal Road returns.
That is right. On Sunday, WH Park will be kicking off the Long and Winding Royal Road for 2021. As they'll be reviewing Jun Akiyama, Mitsuharu Masawa from February of 2000.
And for members of the Post Wrestling Cafe, of course, you have access to Rewind-A-SmackDown coming out on Saturday. But also next week, you can all join us live for our live recording of our Worst Of show on Tuesday that we'll be doing with Braden and Davey. You've heard the best of. Now let's sit back and get cynical for the Worst Of 2020 show. That comes out on Tuesday for all patrons. Public release on Thursday, January the 14th.
And we'll be live for that show for our patrons on Tuesday night at 8 o'clock Eastern. We had a great turnout for the Best Of show, so I hope a lot of people check out the live show Tuesday night at 8 as we go through all the categories for Worst of 2020, a list that I have not even started.
Me neither. Yeah.
Well, that's what weekends are for. Okay, goodbye, everyone. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll speak with you later this week.